Hey guys, so I have a short video today to talk to you about random numbers. So how can we make our program generate a random number? Now, hopefully this immediately jumps out as something that seems useful because there are a lot of uses for random numbers, right? What if you want to just shuffle songs and play a random songs on Spotify or on your phone? What if you want, some kind of video game where the enemy does a random attack or has a random amount of health or a random encounter? Or, I don't know, what if you're trying to shuffle a deck of cards or something? And you're trying to put them in a random order. Those are all examples of why a random number is useful. And this is something that I think computers are really good at. So if you look on the quick reference guide, one of the things under the math class, we had absolute value, power squirt, there's something called random. So math.random, just like math.squirt, gives you a double that is greater than or equal to 0 and less than 1. So it gives you a decimal that's in the form 0 point something. So if you want a random number from 0 to 1, and again, it will never actually give you 1. It'll always give you a decimal. You could just do this. You can print out math.random. Okay, and this will just give you some totally random decimal between 0 and 1. One thing worth noting is when you run your program multiple times, you get different answers. So this was 0.824. We run it again, 0.539. So every time you run your code, Java will just give you a different random number, right? Every time something different. Okay, so you can also, of course, store this as a variable. So you could set up, some double rando equals math.random, and then just print out rando. Oops, sorry, print out rando, and that'll just give you again some random decimal between 0 and 1. Okay, so there you go. So that's how you make a random number from 0 to 1. But what if you run a random number from 0 to, I don't know, 5? I don't know, let's just multiply it by 5, right? So thinking about this mathematically is if you have possibilities on the interval from 0 to 1, and then you multiply that by 5, that gives you possibilities from 0 to 5. Right, because you could have a small number like 0.001 multiplied by 5 doesn't work, but you could also have something that multiplied by 5 and gets you something close to 5. So if you want something like that, system.out.println, you could just do 5 times math.random. Okay, and that'll give you a random decimal that goes between 0 and 5. So we can do this a couple different times here. And we'll see we just get some different numbers each time, somewhere between 0 and 5. That one's actually pretty close to 0 and pretty close to 5. So there we go. Okay, now that's great, but what if you don't want to start at 0? What if you wanted to start at, I don't know, 2? So instead of going from 0 to 5, can we shift that over to go from 2 to 7? Well, sure. I think the easy way to do that probably is to go from 0 to 5 and then just add 2 to the number, right? So instead of going here, we just add 2. So 0 plus 2 or 5 plus 2 gives you 7. And that's how we'll go about that. Okay, so if you want a random number from, say, 2 to 7, well, just you still have this range of 5 numbers. So we're going to keep them multiplied by 5, and we're just going to add 2. So we're going to do the same thing, but just add 2 in front. So this gets a random number from 0 to 1, and then you multiply it by 5, so 0 to 5, and then you add 2 to that result, so it's going to be from 2 to 7. Okay, and if we print this out and see, that'll give us a random number from somewhere between 2 and 7. Okay, and that's what we see for each of those. Oh, they're all 5. That's actually super improbable. There we go, some other ones. Okay, so if you want to generalize this, to get a random number from, I don't know, like A to B, let's say like, I don't know, 12 to 16. You're going to do the starting number plus the range times math.random. And what I mean by that range is, the B minus A. So this is like A, so your first number is A, your lower numbers would be 12 plus math.random, or plus 16 minus 12, so there are 4 times math.random. So if you have just two integers, like int A equals 12, int B equals 16, the way you'd approach that is like so. System.out.println, and you just do A plus, and then so you're starting at A, you can't get anything smaller than 12, plus 16 minus 12, so we have a width of 4. 12 to 16 is 4 units. So 4 times math.random. And if you run that repeatedly, it'll always give you a number somewhere between 12 to 16. Okay, so that's random doubles. Now, the next thing you're probably wondering about, what if you want a random integer? Do we have a way to turn a double into an integer? We do, my friends. It's called casting. Okay, so if you want a random int, all you need to do is cast. Cast after you do the multiplication and the adding. Okay, so let's say this. Let's start with a basic example. Say you want a random int from 5 to 7. There are 3 possibilities. You could have 5, 6, or 7. So there are 3 actual options. So what you're going to do is you're going to do something similar. So you're going to do the starting value plus, but instead of a range, you're going to do like the number of options times math.random. And then you're going to cast that whole thing as an integer. Now, one thing worth noting is like the difference between 5 and 7, if you just subtract them to the double, 7 minus 5 is 2. But you actually have 3 options. So you do 7 minus 5 and then you add 1. So like that number of options is going to equal like the big number minus the small number plus 1. So if I want 5 to 7, 7 minus 5 is 2 plus 1 is 3. So I will write this out and just do system.out.println. So I'm going to do 5 plus 3 times math.random, because again, there are 3 possibilities, 5, 6, and 7. And then again, this will give me a decimal. I need to make sure I cast as an int. And that'll always round it down. So it'll either give me 5 point something, 6 point something, or 7 point something. And then when I round that down, it chops off the decimals. So casting as an int chops off those decimals and gives you 5, 6, or 7. Okay, so let's just copy paste this a couple times, and we're going to see it's always going to give us a number between 5, 6, and 7, hopefully. Maybe not. Let's see what the random gods tell me. Yeah, okay, so we just got a bunch of 6 and 7s, but I'm pretty sure 5 is possible, and there we get some that time. Okay, so that's how you'll do that. If you just want to kind of generalize that, again, if you want a random int from A to B, you're just going to do, I'll put this in comments, like you're starting at A, and there are B minus A minus 1 options. So this is like a B, starting at A. And then in parentheses here, you do the difference between them plus 1. There's plus 1, I don't know why I wrote mine, say, plus 1 different options there. Okay, so that's how you make a random int from something to something. So for example, if you want, say, a random int from 10 to 15, well, you start at 10. There are 15 minus 10 is 5 plus 1 is 6 options. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That's 6 different options right there. So what you have is you would just do this and say 10, starting at 10, and then I have 6 different options. Okay, so that'll give me a random number between 10 and 15. No more than 15. No smaller than 10. Okay, here are some issues, some bad things to do. And again, by the way, you can store these as an int variable. Of course, int x equals whatever, and then print that up. Here are some bad things to do. So do not do these. Some people try and do this. They try and like mess up the cast. And I see like 6 times cast as an int, math.random. Okay, now this is going to compile, but what's the problem, right? Math.random will always give you a decimal. So 0 point something. When you cast as an int, isn't it always just going to give you 0, right? So this just does 6 times 0 always. So like no matter how many times I run this, math.random always casts as 0. It's always going to give me 0 for that. So that's a problem. Another thing I see, people forget to put things in parentheses. So I like to put everything in parentheses and then cast after doing the multiplication and the addition. Okay, so the other issue I see, something kind of similar to that, people try and do this. They try and cast too soon, but without parentheses. So without the parentheses, it just casts 6 as an integer, and then it's going to give you a decimal. So without parentheses, without parens, this just casts 6, and then gives you a decimal answer, because it just does, okay, this is 6 now. Now I do 6 times this decimal, and it'll just give me some random double, not a random int. Okay, so that's random numbers. Hope that helps. This is something we're going to use a lot throughout the year, and I'll see you guys soon.